अविकाराय शुद्धाय नित्याय परमात्मने सदैकरूपरूपाय विष्णवे सर्वजिष्णवे सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्. We have all assembled here today to embark on the journey of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Krishna Sankalpa, we are going to get together once every month and cover the 18 chapters of the Gita as summaries. 18 weeks we will relish the summaries of the 18 chapters of the Gita. 18 months. And we will set the stage for the deep dive of the Gita today by relishing the significance and the context of the Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita is a journey of what I call from a state of Vishada to a state of Vijaya. It's a leap from Vishada to Vijaya, and this leap is made possible. This leap of V to V, Vishada to Vijaya, is made possible by the practice of two more V's, Viveka and Vairagya. Viveka, discriminative intelligence. Vairagya, detachment. The fuel for this journey, the most important V, is Vishnu Bhakti. Swadharma Jnana Vairagya Sadhya Bhakyaika Gocharaha Narayana Param Brahma Gita Shastre Samiritaha. This is the summary shloka of the Gita from an ancient text called Gitartha Sangraha. This one shloka summarizes the 700 shlokas of the Gita. The Gita comprises of 700 shlokas divided into 18 chapters. And this one summary shloka gives us a gist of what Gita is all about. Swadharma Jnana Vairagya Sadhya Bhakyaika Gocharaha Narayana Param Brahma Gita Shastre Samiritaha. The Gita Shastra reveals the Param Brahma. Narayana Param Brahma. The ultimate reality, Param Brahma, is revealed through the Gita Shastra. And this revelation happens to those sadhakas who practice bhakti, and the prerequisites for the practice of bhakti are Swadharma, Jnana, Vairagya. Swadharma, performance of one's duty. Jnana, acquisition of right knowledge. And Vairagya, leading a life of detachment. Through Swadharma, Jnana and Vairagya, one then qualifies to perform bhakti, and through bhakti, one realizes mukti. When intelligence lodges securely in the mind, it becomes wisdom. And when wisdom integrates with life and issues out as action, that becomes bhakti. Knowledge and bhakti, jnana and bhakti, are not different. When jnana matures, it becomes bhakti. constant contemplation of Krishna is bhakti. And in that constant contemplation, when one leads a life of prayer, where every work that is done becomes worship, where the God principle is added to every action that is performed, then one leads a life rooted in bhakti. It seems there was a rich man who wrote a very interesting will. He wrote in his will that his horses had to be distributed amongst his son, the village temple, and his faithful servant. In his will, he wrote, a half of my horses have to be passed on to my son. 1/4 of my horses have to be given to the village temple. 1/5 of the horses have to be given to my faithful servant. And then one fine day he passed away. The village folk got together and they decided to execute his will. And then when they looked at this will, they all started to scratch their heads, not knowing what to do. Why? Because the old man had 19 horses. How are we going to distribute half of 19 to the son, 1/4 of 19 to the village temple, 1/5 to the faithful servant? How is it going to be possible? They were all shocked. They were all confused, scratching their heads, not knowing what to do. And then a wise man from a neighboring village came riding on his horse and then inquired, what's going on? And then they all shared the confusion, the challenge that they have in terms of executing this old man's will. The wise man said, no problem, give me an opportunity to help you. And then he got all the 19 horses in a row. The horses were made to stand in a row. All the villagers got together to witness what is going to happen. How is this wise man going to distribute this 19 horses in a way that seems impossible? The wise man got down from his horse and added his horse to the 19. Now the count of the horses become 20. And he said, half of the 20, give them away to the son. Half of 20 is 10. 1/4 of 20, give it to the village temple. 1/4 of 20 is 5. 1/5 of the 20, give it to the faithful servant. 1/5 of 20 is 4. 10, 5, 4 adds up to 19. One more horse remains, the 20th, which is his own. Mounts on his horse and he bids farewell and rides away. Now, while riding away, the wise man had one important message to all the villagers. He looked around and said, you know what? The secret to successful life is to add what I call the Krishna principle to everything that you do. Just by adding the Krishna principle to every action, there is no challenge that you cannot surmount. Everything, there is a solution to every problem in life. Just like when the heat principle is added to water. When the heat principle is added to water, the water starts to boil. And slowly and steadily, it converts into steam and disappears. Similarly, when the God principle is added to everything that we do in life, there are no more problems. It's just a matter of time that all seemingly unsurmountable problems vanish, disappear. That's the magic of adding Krishna principle. Bhakti is essentially leading a life of prayer where we continue to do actions as we do as always. It doesn't matter what professions we are in. It doesn't matter what stage of life we are in. It doesn't matter what kind of work we do. Any work, every work can become worship to Krishna. All that we need is to add that Krishna principle to every action that we do. Therefore, Gita teaches us this sadhana of how do we add that Krishna principle to everything and anything that we do, so that our mundane actions get consecrated. Every action that we do, howsoever trivial it can be or howsoever significant it can be, can become consecrated. That is what we call work becoming worship. And Gita teaches us how do we transform the way we conduct our lives, how do we lead our lives. Gita teaches us profound yet practical principles that we can apply in our day-to-day life and living. The Gita consists of 700 verses, divided into 18 chapters. Krishna, the master, has a very innovative way of teaching Arjuna and all of us. In the pretext of teaching Arjuna, Krishna actually teaches each and every one of us important life lessons that can transform us, empower us, and ensure that we are successful in every domain of life and living. Interestingly, the Gita starts with a verse spoken by Dhritarashtra. If we pick the Gita, we would possibly expect the Gita to start with a description of Krishna, possibly. Because after all, is the holiest of holy texts, the most sacred text in Sanatana Dharma. But then, to our utter shock and dismay, we see Gita begins with a verse from Dhritarashtra. The Gita starts with Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yutsavaha Mavakah Pandavas Cheva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. We may wonder, why should the Gita start with Dhritarashtra of all the people? Somebody who is not even remotely sacred, somebody who is not even remotely virtuous. He is the very embodiment of evil. He is the very embodiment of all vicious qualities put together. Why should the Gita start with a verse from Dhritarashtra of all the people? Now, one possible explanation for this is that Gita is not an isolated text. Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata. Mahabharata also has 18 parvas, 1 lakh shlokas. Mahabharata is Dharmashastra. It's celebrated as Panchamo Veda. It is Vedas packaged in a way that could be understood by common people like us, because the Vedas are beyond our reach. It is impossible for us, especially in today's times, to study and understand the purport of Vedas. Not only the language, but even the way the Vedas are constructed and designed are beyond our comprehension. So Vedavyasa, who also compiled the Vedas, the 4 Vedas, wrote the Mahabharata for our sake, and it is celebrated as Panchamo Veda. And the Bhagavad Gita happens to be in the 6th Parva, Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata. 6th Parva out of the 18 Parvas of Mahabharata, the 6th Parva is Bhishma Parva. It is in the Bhishma Parva we find Mahabharata, we find Gita. And as the Gita happens to be part of the Bhishma Parva in Mahabharata, in the context of the war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, therefore, it is only natural that before the actual samvada that happens between Krishna and Arjuna, there is a shloka, a verse which precedes that samvada, a verse spoken by Dhritarashtra. Incidentally, there are two Gitas happening at the same time. What are the two Gitas? There is an outdoor Gita and there is an indoor Gita. What is this outdoor Gita and indoor Gita? Outdoor Gita is happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Krishna is having a samvada, a conversation with Arjuna, his disciple. That is the outdoor Gita. There is an indoor Gita, the commentary that Sanjaya is giving to Dhritarashtra. Thanks to his Acharya, thanks to Guru Kripa, Sanjaya is bestowed with Jnana Chakshu, divine vision. So he was able to see, experience everything that was happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he was able to relay a commentary. Possibly in the history of humankind, this is possibly the first live commentary that ever happened. This is so very special. These days we see with advancement in technology, there are different kinds of mics that are placed on the field. When cricket is happening, we get to hear back, the players speak and all that. Sanjaya was so very blessed that he was able to not only listen to what was going on, he was even able to experience the experiences on the battlefield. So he was able to relay every incident, every moment, every twist, every turn that happened on the battlefield to Dhritarashtra. Now, the Gita, the two Gitas incident also have another thing in common. What is common? It is a charioteer who is speaking and it is a blind man who is listening. In the case of the indoor Gita, Sanjaya, the charioteer, is speaking, and Dhritarashtra, who is both physically and mentally blind, is the one who is listening. So it's a samvada between a charioteer and a blind man. The outdoor Gita, incidentally, is also a samvada between a charioteer and a blind man. Parthasarathi, Sri Krishna, the charioteer. Arjuna. How come Arjuna is blind? Arjuna was not physically blind, but he was momentarily blinded mentally, intellectually. It is that blindness which caused Arjuna to sink into depths of grief. So both these Gitas, both these Samvadas have the same parallels. So it is possibly because Gita happens to be right in Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata, it is preceded by Dhritarashtra's verse. And hence Gita starts with Dhritarashtra Uvacha. But still we are not convinced. Still, a holy text, why should it start in such a manner? Why should Gita why not the starting point could be moved somewhere else? Why should it start with only Dhritarashtra Uvacha? The starting point could have been moved a little further. Throughout the first chapter of the Gita, Krishna does not even speak. So we still have this question as to why the Gita should begin with Dhritarashtra. Now, the secret to that lies in the very name Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra. Dhrita means one who holds on. Rashtra, to kingdom. Dhritarashtra is the one who was blindly attached to his kingdom. A king who was not only physically blind, he was also blinded by his own attachment to his own kingdom. Therefore, Gita starts with Dhritarashtra, who is the very embodiment of what we call tamas, ignorance, darkness. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritangamaya. The Vedas teach how we can journey from ignorance to knowledge, from darkness to light, from mortality to immortality. The journey of Gita is that journey which leads us from mortality to immortality, from ignorance to knowledge, from darkness to light. Every journey has to begin where we are, not where we would want to be. Very important. When we start a journey, it always has to start from where we are, not where we would want to be, because we have already taken several wrong directions in this life and the lives before. We are where we are. And the journey begins in a state of darkness, spiritual darkness. And the Gita leads us out of this darkness into light. There is this ancient proverb which talks about 4 kinds of men. It classifies men into 4 kinds. He who knows not, and he knows not, he knows not. 2, he knows not and knows he knows not. Number 2. 3, he who knows not and knows he knows not is 3. And the 4, he who knows and he knows he knows. The first category, he who knows not and knows not, he is a fool. Ignore him. The second category, he who knows but knows not, he knows, he is asleep. He needs a guru to be awakened. The third category, he who knows not and knows he knows not, he is ready for the journey of learning. Because he knows not and he knows not. That's a prerequisite. That is a prerequisite for any journey of learning. Because if we think we know everything, then there is no need to even seek wisdom. So the third category are those who are ready for the journey of learning. And the fourth is he who knows and he knows he knows. He is the wise man. Krishna, in the pretext of teaching Gita to Arjuna, is actually empowering us, enabling us to journey on this path, to become the wise man who knows he knows that he knows. The flow and the structure of Gita is so very scientific. Now, before we take up the summaries of all the 18 chapters, it would be of great help to us to understand what is the overall flow of the Gita. What is the high-level structure of the Gita? There is a very clear method that Krishna adopts in his teaching, so very powerful, so very relevant to all of us in terms of how we can teach and learn any subject. If we look at how the Gita flows based on a structure which is triggered by a very simple question. No, there is only one driving question that Arjuna has. So that driving question that Arjuna had thousands of years before is so very relevant to each and every one of us today, irrespective of what stage of life we are or what we do. What was that one driving question? What is dharma? What is the right thing to do? Very simple. Isn't this that central question for each and every one of us? What is that right thing to do in life? This is the driving question. The Gita flows based on this driving question of Arjuna. Now, Krishna, knowing that making a choice is not easy at all, he actually addresses certain fundamental truths. In the process of answering this driving question of Arjuna, Krishna actually takes us through in the Gita, giving us a treasury of fundamental truths which form our worldview. And it is this worldview which shapes the choices that we make. Now, all of us are infinite choice makers. We lead our lives based on choices that we make. And what shapes our choices? It is the worldview that each and every one of us have. I have my own worldview, you have your own worldview, depending on our own backgrounds, depending on our own circumstances, depending on our own individual impressions in the mind, which the Shastra calls as vasanas. We all have our own way of looking at the world. Our worldviews are so very different because our worlds are so very different. There is not one single world. We think we are living in one physical world, but each of us are living in our own worlds. Based on our worldview, our choices are shaped. So therefore, Krishna attempts to transform that worldview so that our choices, he can help us, empower us to make the right choices. So in that process of transforming that worldview, giving us an expansive perspective of life and living, while trying to answer that fundamental driving question of Arjuna in terms of what is the right thing to do, what is my dharma, Krishna goes about answering certain fundamental questions which we seldom ask. There are certain fundamental questions which we are hesitant to ask because they make us very uncomfortable. Who are we? Whose are we? Where are we? If you look at the Gita, the 18 chapters can be divided into 3 segments. 3 segments of 6 chapters. Each of the segment, Shadga, is a group of 6 chapters. It's a Shadga, 3 Shadgas. 3 into 6, 18 chapters. Every group of 6 chapters of the Gita tries to answer, every group gives a fundamental, addresses certain fundamental questions. The first segment of the Gita, the first 6 chapters, helps us to understand answers to the question as to who are we. Our foundational, fundamental identity. Am I the body? Am I the mind? Am I the intellect? Or am I something beyond this body? Who am I? What is my identity? Because without knowing my identity, I cannot shape the choices in my life. So that identity becomes so very important. So the very first 6 chapters of the Gita focuses on giving us answers to the central question. Who are we? The second segment of the Gita then answers the other important question. Whose are we? We all are focused in our life on our belongings without realizing that we ourselves belong to somebody else. Nothing belongs to us. The belongings that we think belong to us, in reality, don't belong to us. There is nothing that we can own forever, because this world is by design subject to law of impermanence of everything. Therefore, the second group of 6 chapters of the Gita, Krishna answers, what is the relationship between me and Krishna? What is the relationship between this universe Bhagavan and each and every one of us. So whose are we? That's the second important question. The third group of 6 chapters starting from 13 to 18, answers the fundamental question, where are we? Where are we and why are we here? First of all, where are we? We need to recognize the nature of this world. In the concluding part, Krishna talks about the building blocks of this creation, the nature of this creation, our place in this creation. He talks about the 3 gunas, the sattva, rajas, tamas, and how these are the building blocks of this universe. And where are we in this universe? Why are we in this universe? What is the cycle of samsara? And not only answers to where are we and why are we, how are we to also achieve the ultimate purpose, fulfill the ultimate purpose of life. So if we look at the way the Gita is structured, in the process of answering that one driving question as to what is the right thing to do, what is dharma, Krishna through 18 chapters gives us certain foundational, fundamental truths, answers to questions like who are we, whose are we, where are we, why are we, how are we. The beauty of Gita is it starts with a very specific situation. A very specific situation starts with at a micro level, which is Arjuna has a huge problem. Arjuna, the valiant Arjuna, the warrior, the world-conquering warrior Arjuna has a problem. He is in a state of shock, bewilderment, anguish, not knowing what to do. Arjuna's problem is the specific situation with which Gita starts. So it starts at a micro level, and then we see the flow of Gita moving from the micro to the macro. From a specific situation, Krishna moves on to certain universal principles, and then he again comes back to a specific solution. Now, why does he go to universal principles? Now, if for a specific situation, for a specific problem that Arjuna had, if Krishna straight away gave a specific solution, then Gita possibly would not have been relevant to many of us today. It would have been possibly a text of interest for history buffs. Arjuna had a problem. He was not unable to make a decision to fight the war. Krishna gave a specific solution to a specific problem and enabled him to fight the war. Engage. Story is over. But the Gita remains universally relevant to each and every one of us even till today, because it rises from a specific situation to certain universal principles where Krishna goes into detail, gives a glorious exposition on duty and one's own identity, on meaning and purpose of life, on destiny and divinity. All these topics are so very relevant to us on a day-to-day basis. So he takes Arjuna through all these universal principles. He rises above the micro, goes at the macro, but he doesn't stay there. If Krishna would have left just there, Arjuna would have got all the universal teachings, but then it would have remained at an abstract level. Krishna once again comes back and operationalizes his teachings and gives Arjuna the required clarity and confidence to going about doing his duty. So he once again comes to a specific solution to Arjuna. So therefore, the relevance of Gita to us is every specific problem that we have, there is a specific solution that Gita can give us, because the principles that are detailed in the Gita are universal in nature. very relevant to each and every one of us. The structure of the Gita is so very systematic that you can see cyclicity in it. What do I mean by cyclicity? The starting and the ending points are stitched together. This is the hallmark of any good text. The starting and the ending should always be stitched together. There should be cyclicity in the teaching. So this is exactly what we see. Gita begins, the starting point of the Gita is a question on dharma. Now, if we see, we celebrate Gita as a dharma shastra. There are two important definitions of dharma in the Gita. There are several. Dharma is a multi-dimensional word. Now, what are the two important definitions of dharma that Gita gives us? Right at the beginning, in the second chapter, we get one definition of dharma. Arjuna surrenders to Krishna and says, Karpanya dosho upahata swabhavaha prachamitvam dharma sammoda chetaha yachreyasyan nishitam bruvitam me shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. There dharma, Arjuna says, hey Krishna, I do not know what my dharma is. Dharma there can be translated as duty. So one definition of dharma is duty. Arjuna was not clear as to what his duty is. There is another important definition of dharma in the Gita. Thanks to B.R. Chopra. Many years back, B.R. Chopra launched the famous Mahabharata TV serial. It brought the whole of Bharata together. And thanks to B.R. Chopra, two shlokas became very, very popular. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyudhanam adharmasya tadatmanam shajamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapanathaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Dharma samstapanathaya. What is dharma here? Bhagavan repeatedly takes avatars for dharma samstapana. What is dharma here? This dharma can be translated as order and harmony in society. Now, these two dharmas, are they related? They are very much related. Throughout the Gita, we see these two dharmas are not only related, they are synergistic in nature. One dharma stands for duty, our duty. The other dharma stands for order and harmony in society. When there is order and harmony in society, it helps, empowers individuals to do their duties, isn't it? Only when there is order that prevails in any society, only when there is harmony, then the individuals in that society can go about doing their respective duties. Now look at the other way around. Every individual has to perform their duty in order to ensure that harmony is protected and prevails in the society. So dharma, the duty, individual duty, dharma, the order in society, both are synergistic in nature. So right at the beginning, we see at the starting point, the question on dharma is raised. Arjuna's question is essentially when he says, what is my dharma, what is my duty? What is Arjuna's problem? Essentially, Arjuna sees a conflict in two roles that he plays. No, if we really see, it is so very relevant to each and every one of us. What is Arjuna's problem? Arjuna says, hey Krishna, I am a Kshatriya. So therefore, as a Kshatriya, I have a duty to fight this war. But at the same time, I also belong to Kuru dynasty. And as a member of the Kuru clan, I also have a duty to protect everyone. Now, my duty, my dynastic duty seems to be in conflict with my duty as a Kshatriya. So what is my dharma? Should I take up the Kshatriya duty and engage in the war and therefore kill Bhishma and Drona? Or should I avoid getting into the war and protect my Kuru dynasty by walking away from the battlefield? This is my conflict. Now, all of us have similar conflicts every day, because We all wear several hats. There is a conflict of my role as a mother and as my role as a professional with whatever the work that I need to do. There is a conflict of a husband role and the role of a father. There is a conflict of the role of a citizen and the role of an employer. So any roles that we think of, we are playing multiple roles, and on a day-to-day basis, we are bewildered, unable to manage the conflicts. If we look at the root cause of the discomfort that we experience every day, this is this inability to understand what is my dharma, what comes before what. My mother's role comes before my employer's role, or my employer's role comes before my citizen's role, my citizen's role comes before my some other. So Arjuna had this, so therefore when Arjuna looked at Krishna and he says, hey Krishna, you have answer me. What is my duty? Is my duty a Kshatriya duty or a Kurunandana duty? What is my duty? You know what Krishna does? Krishna looks at Arjuna and says, he completely changes the entire frame of reference. And he says, both are not your duties, because you have a foundational duty which you don't understand, Arjuna. He immediately changes Arjuna's entire frame of reference. On the one hand, Arjuna is talking about death and dying. Krishna immediately talks about life and eternal living. Look at the way Krishna, the master, addresses the core issues of Arjuna. Arjuna is at one level talking about mundane things, and Krishna suddenly takes him to a peak and gives him a completely a vision, a perspective that Arjuna did not expect. He gives an expansive perspective of life and eternal living. And he says, hey Arjuna, forget about your functional identities. All your duties that you're talking of are all based on your functional identity, but there is a foundational identity beyond all your functional identities. First, you must recognize that your foundational identity is you are not the body, you are the Atman. This is how Krishna changes the frame of reference completely for Arjuna. And eventually, as we see, this is the starting point of the Gita. If we go forward, fast forward to the ending point of the Gita, all of us know this very famous shloka of the Gita. Towards the end, sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarvapapebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha. Where Krishna says sarvadharman parityajya. Arjuna's question was, which is the duty that should I pick up? Krishna seems to say, drop everything, hey Arjuna, all the duties. Now, when Krishna says that, the focus is not on dropping all the duties. Krishna essentially is pointing to Arjuna, hey Arjuna, you have many duties because you have many roles to play, but you need to discover your supreme duty based on your foundational identity. Now, all the sages got together thousands of years back in the sylvan surroundings of Naimisharanya. All the sages got together and they had this question: what is that supreme duty? What is that supreme duty of humankind? And Suta Pauranika beautifully answers, Savai pumsam paro dharmo yatho bhakti radhokshaje ahaituki apratigata yatatma suprasidati. He says, paro dharma, forget about all the conflicts that you have based on various roles and various duties that you need to play. First, you discover what is your supreme duty, what is your paradharma. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yatho bhakti radhokshaje. Doing devotional, loving devotional service to Krishna is your paro dharma. That is your supreme duty. And what kind of bhakti is talking of, what kind of devotion? He uses two important adjectives. Ahaituki, apratihata. Ahaituki means causeless. which means my bhakti to Krishna should be causeless. No, our bhakti to Krishna is a business, not causeless. You give me this, I will give you this. No, we are very good in transacting with Krishna. No, we have a long list and we ensure that, we give him a bait. You know what? You like this special sweet. I will make this 108 sweets and I will eat it, of course. But I will offer it to you, but you have to do this to me. No, I'll come to Tirupati, you give me a job promotion. No, there is always a transaction there. But paradharma ahaituki, Sutta Pauranika says, causeless bhakti, ahaituki apratihata. The second adjective. Very, while Sanskrit is very unfamiliar to us, I always suggest and recommend that there are some very important words and phrases that we need to remember, because with one word, we can recall a very profound message which we cannot do otherwise. One word in Sanskrit, when dharma, we can write thousands of pages on dharma, right? Such a profound word. So some of these words I encourage you to kind of absorb, so that when you recall, when you recall the word ahaituki, bhakti, adjective ahaituki. Hetu means cause. Ahaituki, causeless. Bhakti, which is causeless. Ahaituki, apratihata. Apratihata means ceaseless. Constant contemplation. It's not that when I have time, I will look at Krishna. Krishna, I'm very busy. No, whenever I find time in my busy schedule, I may think of turning towards you. Until then, you wait. That is not bhakti. Bhakti has to be causeless and ceaseless, constant contemplation. Everything should revolve around him. That is the paradharma. Now, the same thing in the Gita, Krishna took Arjuna's question, what is my dharma? Now, this is what the cyclicity I was talking about. Arjuna is talking about a conflict in two dharmas, two duties. Krishna says there is no conflict if you align all your functional dharmas to your foundational dharma. You have to bring all your duties into a harmonious hierarchy. Everything that we do, if it is aligned to that ultimate dharma, ultimate parodharma, which is causeless, ceaseless devotional service, bhakti to Krishna. If that is the parodharma, supreme dharma, every other dharma, when it is aligned to it and brought into an harmonious hierarchy, then there is no conflict whatsoever. So essentially, the cyclicity that we see is Krishna making that assurance. When you discover your foundational identity and your foundational dharma, hey Arjuna, there is no more conflict in life. Everything that you do becomes a devotional service to Krishna. And this assurance is being given by who? Gita is Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Why it is celebrated as Srimad Bhagavad Gita? Yasvayam Padmanabhasya Mukha Padma Vinisrita. Padmanabha Narayana is the very cause of this universe, the creator. He descends and through his nectarine mouth, he is given this nectarine Gita. The Gita is a book of assurances. Whenever we need motivation, whenever we need assurance, all that we need to do is just look at one line of the Gita, because it is filled. 700 verses are 700 assurances of Bhagavan. That is why he is celebrated as Achyuta. Right at the beginning, the first time Arjuna addresses Krishna, he does not call Krishna as Hey Krishna. He calls him Hey Achyuta. Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Ratam Sthapayamechyuta. Hey Achyuta, please take me and stop. Senayor Ubhayor Madhye. Stop right in the middle of the two armies. Hey Achyuta, Arjuna commands. This is how the first time Krishna is ever addressed in the Gita, Achyuta. There is a reason why he is addressed as Achyuta, because Arjuna knows that Krishna will never say no to him. Arjuna knows that Krishna will never refuse any request. Bhagavan is Achyuta. Achyuta, the one who never he never lets us down. He is holding our hand, whether we realize it or not. He is holding our hand and he will never let us down. And that is why he is addressed as Achyuta right at the beginning. Right at the end, once again, Arjuna addresses Krishna as Achyuta. Hey Achyuta, now all my doubts have vanished and I am ready to do what you want me to do, he says. Tat prasadan mayachyuta, he says. Sthitosi gata sangasya, all my doubts have vanished, hey Achyuta, he says. Which means the Gita is spoken by the one who is not only the supreme being, he is our supreme well-wisher, our supreme benefactor. So therefore, it becomes very important for us to be completely receptive, because every word Krishna speaks in the Gita is taking into account our holistic welfare. He is the supreme, he is Suhrit, one who always thinks of our well-being alone. The concluding message and the conclusive message of the Gita, which is the last shloka of the Gita, is once again not just a contextual answer to the first question. Now, if we need to understand the whole of Gita, we need to take the first shloka and the last shloka. Now, what is the first shloka in the Gita? Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamakah pandavaschaiva kimakurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya, on the field of Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, my sons and Pandavas willing to fight, engage in the war, have assembled. What did they do? This is the question. This question seems very odd. Very, very odd. Why I say it is very odd? Imagine somebody comes to you and says, those people who were hungry, they went to the restaurant and they were seated on the table. And then you say, what did they do? Isn't the answer obvious? They ate. The answer is obvious. Those who are hungry, they went to a restaurant and were seated around the table. What did they do? The answer has to be very obvious. They ate. Why would somebody ask a question? Similarly, Dhritarashtra is asking the question, my sons, Duryodhana and the Kauravas and the Pandavas, eager to fight, have assembled on the battlefield. What did they do? The obvious answer is they engaged in a war, in a fight. But why would Dhritarashtra ask such a silly question? No, it is not a silly question, because Dhritarashtra knowingly or unknowingly starts with Dharmakshetra. Because where they have assembled, not on any battlefield, they have assembled on Dharmakshetra, where Dharma alone prevails. Dhritarashtra knows that, back of his mind, Dhritarashtra knows that his adharmic sons are not going to be able to win over the dharmic Pandavas, especially on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is Dharmakshetra. So therefore, Dhritarashtra wanted to ask who is winning, victory is with who. But he couldn't ask that question. He couldn't, because he knows that Pandavas will win, but he cannot. So he ends up asking a seemingly dumb question. What did they do? The Gita ends the 700th shloka with an answer to this very question. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna Yatra Partho Dhanuddara Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutihi Dhrivanitir Matirmama. Very answer is very simple. Wherever there is Arjuna, the Gandhi Vidhari, Dhanuddara, and wherever there is Krishna with Arjuna, there is victory. The answer is, Sanjaya says, hey Dhritarashtra, the answer is simple. Wherever there is Krishna, there is Dharma. Wherever there is Dharma, there is Vijaya. So therefore, victory is with Pandavas. Now, what is important here? The important is, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Yatra Parthaha Dhanuddharaha. Parthaha Dhanurdhara. Partha, son of Pritha, Arjuna, is being qualified by Dhanurdharaha. Dhanurdharaha means one who is holding the bow. Now, Gita begins when Arjuna drops the bow. Arjuna drops his determination to do his duty. Gita ends by Arjuna picking up the bow. He becomes Dhanurdhara. The Gandivadhari drops his bow. He goes as he sinks in an ocean of grief. And when Gita finishes, he is transformed. The one who was riddled with confusion gets total clarity. From confusion to clarity, from delusion to devotion, Arjuna becomes a Dhanurdharaha. He picks up. And therefore, the message is where there is Dhanurdhara, the one who picks up the bow, which means wherever there is the individual, Arjuna represents each and every one of us. One who is ready to diligently do one's duty, staying connected with Krishna, victory is assured. Success is assured. This is the foundational, fundamental message of the Gita. Now, just as a ship that is sailing on an ocean can be taken away by storms, just as storms can take a ship away from its intended direction, take away from its destination, the storms of Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, the storms of Kama, desire, lust, greed, jealousy, egotism, delusion. These storms in our lives can take us away from attaining worthy goals. Bhagavad Gita is like a friendly compass which repeatedly, patiently, diligently, all the time keeps pointing us towards our definitive destination, our delusive deviation, and our required reorientation. With the Gita, Vijaya is guaranteed. This is not just an ordinary assurance, this is the assurance given by Krishna, Bhagavan, the Paramatma himself. So therefore, as we embark on this journey of Bhagavad Gita, let us all pray to that Purushottama, to that Krishna Paramatma, that he stays with us through the journey. He is that Achyuta who never lets us down, who always holds us, guides us all the time. And through this journey, it is a long journey. A journey of 18 months, if we have to do 18 summaries of 18 chapters. And then, if needed, we can even do further deep dive of the 700 verses. But more than the destination, this journey of Gita is so very blissful, because every word that Krishna speaks is loaded with wisdom that is so very practical. I'm so happy to see many children here, and I'm sure Gita appeals to all age groups. Does not matter. Some may think, when I retire, I will take up the Gita. That would be too late. Gita is for everyone, and therefore let us pray to Krishna as we embark on this very auspicious day when all of us have come together to embark on this journey. Let us stay together, connected on this journey, be guided by Krishna, and let us relish Gita Amrita, the nectar of Gita, which is the very essence of all Upanishads put together. Sarvopanishado Gavaha Dogdha Gopalanandanaha. Beautiful, this shloka says Krishna is like the cowherd, it seems. Just like how a cowherd milks the cow and gives us the milk. The cow here is the treasury of the Vedas and the Upanishads. Out of compassion, the cowherd, Krishna, milks the treasury of the Vedanta, the Vedas and the Upanishads. Sarvopanishado Gavaha Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha, Parthaha, Vatsaha, Sudhir Bhokta. In the pretext of teaching, Arjuna is teaching, talking to each and every one of us. It may seem a samvada between Arjuna and Krishna, but Krishna is addressing each and every one of us directly, speaking to us. We may ask this question, does Krishna speak to us? Can I speak to God? Very much possible, because it is through Gita we can engage in a conversation with him whenever we want, wherever we want. So let us start engaging in this conversation with Krishna as we relish every word of the Gita through the 18 chapters. And ultimately, with Krishna Kripa, may we be bestowed with abundance of health, wealth, auspiciousness, and the highest wealth of mokshananda. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.